he just had this magical ability. And I think through the SmartFlow methodology, it gives you the tools to be in a room of 40, 50, 60 people and make you as the individual practitioner feel seen and cared for and sort of like exposed in a vulnerable way, but in a like loving, like, I see more for you. I've got you. I can help you see where you can grow towards, or what you need, or help you know that part of yourself the way I can see it for you.
Welcome back to Full-Time Yoga Teacher Podcast. My name is Reika and I am your host. If you are a returning listener, welcome back. I'm so happy that you chose to come back and listen to this week's episode. And if you're new, welcome. I'm so happy you found yourself to this podcast. This Full-Time Yoga Teacher Podcast was started about a year ago because I wanted to interview other full-time yoga teachers across the world to see how they got to where they are at in their career. Because being a full-time yoga teacher is not easy. I've been teaching yoga full-time for almost a decade, and I learned a lot along the way. But I know every full-time yoga teacher have their own unique path, and that's what I want to highlight in this podcast, is to share their stories, their challenges that they have overcome, and a unique way that they have made it work to be a full-time yoga teacher and do what they love as their everyday career. So I hope you're enjoying this podcast episodes as I release them every Monday. I've done a couple of short series of episodes where I go deep into different topics that I think might be helpful for yoga teachers listening. One announcement before we start this week's podcast episode is that my ethical yoga retreat in Nicaragua has one room open. This room can be for single, in terms of one person can be in there as a private room, private shower, bathroom, or it can be for two people as well. You can have two beds in there, whether you want to come with your best friends or your partner. This room is perfect for you. It's an ethical yoga retreat because part of the money you pay for the retreat will go directly towards two nonprofit organizations that I will be partnering and collaborating with during the retreat. So some of the activities for the retreat includes going to volunteer in local community. So going on a yoga retreat in beautiful beaches in Nicaragua, as well as giving back to the local community and learning about the local culture and cultivating meaningful relationship with people who live there. If that is something that you are looking for in a yoga retreat, this retreat is for you. So if you're interested, I'll put the link on the show notes that has all the information you need about the retreat. So take a look, and if you have any questions, you can always let me know. Okay, let's get started on this week's podcast episode. This week, I am highlighting a group conversation I had with June, Dre, and Bianca. And we are all SmartFlow certified teachers. And I have interviewed each one of them individually in the past. I interviewed June in episode 22. She lives in Australia and she's currently teaching SmartFlow 200-hour teacher training. And Dre, I interviewed in episode 47, and she used to live in Australia. Now she lives in Seattle and she's teaching yoga, as well as she's a mom of two. And Bianca, I interviewed in episode 59. She used to be in a Cirque du Soleil, and now she is still in that world as well as teaching yoga. So these are the three amazing, strong, inspirational yoga teachers that are in my circle of SmartFlow community, and they continue to inspire me. And I wanted to record the conversations that group of us, four of us, is having to share about why SmartFlow is the method that we got drawn to, that we were attracted to, and why we went through trainings and application processes to become certified SmartFlow teachers. What is it about SmartFlow that we love so much? What is it about SmartFlow that we are so passionate about, that we feel strongly about sharing it to the world? So that's what this conversation is about. This is a short 2-part series. So this week's episode, we're going to talk about how we got into SmartFlow, and next week's episode, we are going to talk about what it's like to teach a SmartFlow yoga classes and how is it different from a typical yoga classes. So I hope you enjoy this episode. If you're new to SmartFlow, SmartFlow is a method that was developed by my teacher, Annie Carpenter, and she has created this beautiful method to practice, to teach, to think about movements. And it's such an intelligent way to practice and teach, and that's why it's called the SmartFlow. And I can talk on and on about SmartFlow, but I wanted to bring in these other SmartFlow certified teachers so we can all have these conversations together. If you have taken my group classes before, you have experienced SmartFlow. The way I teach is SmartFlow. So if you enjoyed any part of my way of teaching, which is, I like to say, alignment-based, technique-driven, and very mindful and intelligent way of moving. So that is SmartFlow. So I hope you find this conversation I had with June, Dre, and Bianca interesting. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me about SmartFlow. Okay, let's get started on this week's episode.
Welcome, June, Bianca, and Dre, for coming on to Full-Time Yoga Teacher Podcast. I'm so excited that we get to have this group discussions and conversations together to talk about SmartFlow, because we are all SmartFlow certified teachers and we all have so much love for SmartFlow and Annie. And I thought it'll be really fun to get all of us together to kind of talk about SmartFlow and kind of share what SmartFlow is to the world out there, because it's something we're all very passionate about. So I thought today we could start by discussing, how did you first come across SmartFlow? How did you first discover SmartFlow or Annie? And any a point that made you realize this is amazing. I really want to keep learning this method. So maybe June, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. I came across SmartFlow when I moved to Sydney. There was a SmartFlow trainer nearby I lived, and I went into one of the classes. It wasn't taught by the trainer herself, but it was by another teacher. And when I was in that first class, I realized everything I did was wrong. Pretty much every asana I practiced that I have been teaching for 2 years was wrong. It was very, very confronting. And I still remembered when I walked down the stair, it didn't turn me off. I actually walked down the staircase of the studios telling myself, yeah, I found my yoga school. And since then, I've been doing SmartFlow since 2014. And this is the path that I know it's for me. That's the path that I want to be as a teacher. And that's my simple story. And I never changed. I was very loyal to SmartFlow. I don't do any other trainings or practice with any other teachers. If I want to do any sort of trainings, it will be only with SmartFlow.
I'm curious though, that, you had this strong knowing of this is it. This is it for me. Do you know what brought you that certainty? This is a method I want to, be loyal to and continue learning? Any, I don't know, sensations, feelings?
Because I did my 200 hours in India. And I was living in Hong Kong back then. So after the training, I moved back to Hong Kong. And then I don't have anyone to practice with. There's no teacher, there's no yoga school. So I have been moving around different studios, trying out different teachers, going different methods. And then I moved to Singapore. And then I did the same thing. Different studios, different teachers, different methods. So I just like a bird going to different nests. And then when I moved to Sydney, I was again trying out different studios, different teachers. But then there's this studio right next to me I haven't yet tried. And that was it, where I actually met Ananda, one of the SmartFlow trainers. And so that's why after that one class, I left the studio I found my home.
What about you, Reika?
I first got introduced to SmartFlow. I think I was somewhat introduced taking 200 hours from YogaWorks, 200 and 300 from YogaWorks, because Annie has such a presence in YogaWorks teacher training, even though she have left YogaWorks by the time I was training with them. So I have heard of Annie Carpenter's name so often. And one weekend, I decided to sign up for like a weekend intro to SmartFlow workshop that was taught by Tiffany Russo at YogaWorks in Santa Monica. Because I heard Annie Carpenter's name so much from studying at YogaWorks, I was like, oh, I'm curious about like her teachings, even though it wasn't her teaching, it was Tiffany, but I knew Tiffany was one of her main students. So I was like, okay, I want to go check it out. And I remember it was just a weekend, like 2 day, maybe Saturday, Sunday. And we just covered maybe like 1 or 2 movement principle that weekend. But Tiffany brought this like printed version of the MP of the manual that we covered. So it was just maybe 2 MPs that she just printed that section and handed out to us. And when we practiced in the workshop, I was like, oh, this is fascinating. I'm learning so much, but I couldn't really grasp the method completely yet. And on my way back, I took the metro to Santa Monica from Long Beach. So on my way back on the metro, it takes hours. I started reading the printed MP that Tiffany handed out to us. And I just remember that moment of like, this makes so much sense. Like movement principle makes so much sense. And I just have never heard of anyone teach yoga and movement in that way, the movement principle from SmartFlow. And I think that is when I was like, I need to study with Annie Carpenter. What about you, Bianca?
Let's see. Well, I first discovered Annie. I had just gotten off tour with Cirque du Soleil. I had quite a few injuries, and I was looking for a way to heal my body and have an embodiment practice that also had a philosophy behind it. And it was late 90s, early 2000s. I came back to Los Angeles because it's my home after a tour and started, looking for yoga studios around. And it didn't take me very long. I found Annie really pretty soon. Mm-hmm. Within months and of trying different yoga studios, and just knew right away that she was my teacher. Mm-hmm. It was something innate, something that it was intelligent and made sense in my body. It wasn't called SmartFlow back then. She was teaching through YogaWorks. Uh-huh. And I tried various teachers within YogaWorks as well. And she was the one who would get me to drive all the way to Santa Monica from where I was living. And over the years, she developed into the methodology of SmartFlow. But when I took my 200-hour, it was with her through YogaWorks. Yeah.
It seems like, Bianca, you, similar to June, also have this like innate like knowing like, oh, this is it. Like, this is my teacher, or this is the method that makes sense. I would like to know from you too, Bianca, like what was it that really made you think so sure about like, this is my teacher?
She saw me.
Uh-huh.
She saw me in a way that some other, that was rare. And I think we had in common art. We were both artists. And she coming from Graham as a Graham dancer, and me coming from dance and circus world. And also, I think she knew she could teach me in a way that was really healthy for my body. And I was living for so many years in a world where I was using my body as a form of creativity, but also performance. And you had to be on when you're hired for a job. You got to be on when it's your time to go on stage. And yoga was a way to have compassion and create a respite from my body. And she got that in me in a way that helped me restructure, rebuild my alignment in a way that I could then transfer over to my career as a performing artist in the circus, aerial acrobat, dancer, contortionist. And even though sometimes I'd have to throw that stuff out the window to get the more extreme stuff, I could always come back to her classes, and they would kind of like put me back together.
I love that, what you said about I can come back to her classes and put me back together. Okay. What about you, Dre? What's your first introduction to SmartFlow?
So I was living in Sydney, also June. I just quit my corporate job and signed up for an Annie Carpenter at one of her 300-hour modules. I'd been teaching on the side for, doesn't matter, several years. So I just signed up cold she was coming to visit the studio that I normally practiced at. And I found myself with time and space to invest in my continuing education. And if you are new to the SmartFlow school and you've never taken a training and you're signing up for a 300-hour instead of a 200-hour, you are highly encouraged, or if not required, to take those online modules that she's put together, part of SmartFlow. So I was looking back, and actually my first interaction with her was on those recorded videos.
Oh, wow.
11-hour modules before the training began to introduce those concepts. And even through those, I saw this luminosity in Annie, and obviously this vibrance, and also this wisdom and lived experience of practicing and teaching for decades. And then being in the room with her. So my first practice was with her. My first practice with Annie was in an advanced training setting. And he just had this magical ability. And I think through the SmartFlow methodology, it gives you the tools to be in a room of 40, 50, 60 people and make you as the individual practitioner feel seen and cared for, and sort of exposed in a vulnerable way, but in a loving, I see more for you. I've got you. I can help you see where you can grow towards, or what you need, or help you know that part of yourself the way I can see it for you, So I felt like other yoga classes I would go to and I could sort of disappear. I'm having my own little experience in my room of my mat, which was lovely and therapeutic in a lot of ways. And and a lot of times I would crave oh, I want an adjustment, or I want attention from the teacher, but if it's one to many, that's really hard to do. I don't know. Certain teachers I would want that from, others I wouldn't. And I just found it so magical that not only could Annie do that, but she could do that one to many in this room of people that she's never met before or knew very few of. And then, helped me know and learn my body better than I could have ever on my own.
I feel like Annie does that so beautifully to make everybody feel seen and witnessed. And I get so amazed by how she can do that on Zoom. How she can still be leading a class in person, in studio, room full of students, and have maybe 15 people, 20 people on Zoom room. And she'll make everybody feel seen. It's amazing.
It's a gift.
Yes, for sure. Well, maybe a little bit more in terms of, because all of us here in this room we're a certified SmartFlow teacher, which takes little extra steps than just completing Annie's 300 hours. So what was that experience of kind of becoming this final process of getting certified SmartFlow teacher, where we can actually teach a class called SmartFlow? What was that process like for you? But also, this is quite an extra step that only the dedicated one go through. So what made you go through all of that process? What was the drive behind it, I guess?
Let me start first then. Because during the pandemic, Annie didn't have an opportunity to travel to Australia because she usually travels there once a year. So I haven't seen Annie for, I think, 2-3 years. And when I met her again after the pandemic, I think I haven't seen her in person for 3 years around that time. And then during the break, I went to her, pull her aside. Hey, Annie, how can I be like Ananda? And then she was like, I didn't know you're interested to be a SmartFlow teacher or even a trainer. I said, it has been in my mind for quite some time, but I just didn't know the process to get there. And I think it took me many, many years. I think I always wanted to run my own teacher's training one day, but I just felt like my teaching is SmartFlow. So the best way to combine my training and representing SmartFlow is actually to go to the path And then I didn't know to go to the path, I need to first be a teacher first. So then that's how I went through the process. 500, then teacher, then the trainer. That's how it got me into this path.
Nice.
What about you, Reika?
I just remember I started taking a lot of Annie's advanced, like a part of the 300 training modules, and took her mentorship. And by that time, I was like, oh, I'm already like halfway through her 300. Might as well like keep going and complete my 300 with Annie, because at the time I had 300 from Yoga Works already. So I wasn't planning to do another 300. But because I was so motivated and kind of like so curious about all the materials that Annie was teaching, because SmartFlow resonated with me so much. So I started kind of taking her continuing education. I'm like, oh, might as well complete the 300 because I'm already like halfway there with my hours. And so I continued because I knew Annie and SmartFlow method was something that really resonated in my body and my practice and teacher. So I finished the 300, and I also knew from her website that there's like extra step that you can take if you want. I just remember this, like before Annie's website revamped, you can find SmartFlow teachers on the website. On her website, you can see all the SmartFlow teachers around the world. And there's a list of 200-hour certified SmartFlow teachers. And there's a list of 300-hour certified SmartFlow teacher. And then there was this like certified SmartFlow trainer, or, there was just like the top, and there was a couple of photos there. And I was like, oh, cool. So I guess there's like actual steps she explains to like get there. And I was like, okay, I'm going to keep going. So after my 300, I went through the application process of doing recordings and, writing essays and all that to see if I can get approved to become certified SmartFlow teacher. And I wasn't really sure what was going to come after that, but I'm kind of person, if there's a path, I kind of want to keep challenging myself to get to the next path. So yeah, and I remember I was in India when I was typing my essays for her application process. And yeah, I think I enjoy that she has this like step-by-step process for people who do choose to want to keep going. And, she doesn't just certify anybody. She wants to see how you're teaching. She wants to see the recording. She wants to see how you critique your own teachings in the essay. I think I like that she's not just certifying anybody. You do have to go through quite a bit of step to get there. But I'm very, very happy that I did, because I got to meet all of you. I got to assist Annie's 200 last year, and now being able to lead the SmartFlow 200 here in Laguna Niguel has been so I feel like a lot of doors have opened up for me. So I'm very, very grateful and happy that I went through the process. Bianca, what about you? I feel like you've been in the Annie's world for so long that I don't know, because I feel like I came in much later. So I'm sure your experience might be a little bit different.
Yeah, it's been interesting to just see in general, watch her teaching change over however many years, 20 something years, 25 years, something. And also to watch, my relationship with her change from kind of this student that would just kind of come in when I was in town because I was touring all the time. And then develop into a more steady practice with her when I moved back to Los Angeles. Like I would have these like sort of years of time where I primarily be based in LA, where I would be coming quite a bit. And then like progressing into this becoming a yoga teacher. And through it, it was clear to me that I wanted to teach, in the vein of Annie, because she's the one I've been taking from for so long. And I find that part just really fascinating, just that arc of relationship that we have with our teachers in general. I mean, I can only really speak about my arc of relationship with Annie, but I know we all kind of have it, and that part I find really, really fascinating. And the progression of it as we change, not only, in our career in yoga or our path in yoga as yogis, but as our path as humans. It's really fascinating, hard to kind of pinpoint for me. It's a vast topic. Mm-hmm. But going into this place where she's watching you teach that was really intriguing for me because it's like you're watching yourself teach at the same time. And then going into the critique of the self, I think I really appreciate that aspect. She wants to hear from you what your perspective is about how you teach. Really eye-opening stuff. An incredible opportunity, even though there's a sense of energy, almost nervousness around it when we do it. I mean, at least when I did it, there's also a sense of, wow, this is a pretty amazing opportunity to be able to hear with such clarity, this really honest but compassionate critique of how you teach. Eye-opening for me. And I learned so much in that process, and that, so much that I take with me to my classes to this day, of course.
Yeah. I was so nervous, I remember.
Were you? Yeah.
Recording that, knowing that Annie's going to be watching it on the other side.
Yeah.
I was very nervous. What about you today? What's your journey like?
Yes. Yes. So I just had to keep absorbing, keep learning. Similar to June, I've sort of just stayed loyal to the SmartFlow path once I met Annie. And I think seeing some of those, like Reika, you were talking about the hierarchy sort of like people who have filtered through the school. And in Australia, I got to meet several of them because they came over for the training. So like having those teachers, trainers, practitioners in the room too, alongside me, who's like just meeting her for the first time, was super intriguing because you see the possibility of what a dedicated practice within this realm for you could I'm not going to be outcomes based, but you know what I mean? Just like sort of what it could produce, just more for like your physical, spiritual, emotional presence versus, I'm not really talking about career wise. So for me, it was more about, there was so much mystery still within the SmartFlow. Like I got generally the structure, but it just took so long and I kept wanting to like soak up. It took, being able, because I live in Seattle, so like being able to actually take regular classes with her in addition to the trainings and integrating that more like deep dive material. So it's taken a lot to quench my thirst for clarity on this system. So that's kind of why I pursued it. And then, and beyond just sort of the intellectual and spiritual joy of devouring and learning it. Physically, I've had like 2 kids over the course of learning all this stuff. I've dealt with like chronic pain and insomnia in between, postpartum depression, whatever, big life changes, nothing like major injury wise, but your body is being like ripped apart and put back together multiple times. And, I've been just so grateful for SmartFlow, for being that home, and like the power of, it's not just bigger, more, better, like the power of the return to center, and just seeing the adaptability of that system to a body that needs very different things from like one day to the next, 1 month to the next, is like reinforced that drive to pursue. The actual certification process, I only did because I was forced to do in order to assist 100-hour training, which I desperately wanted to do, because recording myself, listening to myself, terrifying. And I'm so glad I did it. Similar to Bianca, you just, the compassion, the honesty, the growth that comes from that self and like mentor scene, observation and reflection, like I've grown so much. So I'm so grateful.
Thank you. That was such a beautifully said. And like what you said about it kind of like carried you through different phases of your life, I love that. I actually really love hearing all of your stories of like how you got to what led you to SmartFlow and what kept you keep going. And it's actually like super inspiring me to hear how all of you are so like I think June, you said like loyal and dedicated, and like this is the method, this is the path. So thank you all for sharing. Next week, I think we're going to come back and talk about what this embodying SmartFlow method and practice has been like for us, to teach it, to feel it in our body, and to actually like study and learn the method. So that's what we're going to talk about next week. And thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Reika, for getting us all together.
That is it for this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed our conversation about SmartFlow and how much we love SmartFlow and Annie. And I hope you were able to tell how much love and respect we have for SmartFlow method, as well as Annie Carpenter, our teacher. I really enjoyed recording this conversation for this podcast, and I hope you will enjoy next week's episode where we are going to be back again talking about SmartFlow. Just as a reminder, I do have one room left in my upcoming retreat in Nicaragua, Ethical Yoga Retreat. This is from July 12th through the 19th. All the information you need will be on the show notes, and you can always message me to reach out to me and ask questions. One more announcement that I forgot to make at the beginning of the podcast is that I am opening the door for the module 2 of the mentorship program for yoga teachers. I run mentorship for yoga teachers throughout the year, but they're broken up into 3 modules, and every 4 months I open the door for registrations and applications. So if you're interested in deepening your yoga knowledge and refining your teaching skills in a supportive group format and amazing community that continue to support each other and encourage each other and celebrate one another, this group is for you. We meet to talk about yoga philosophy, pranayama and meditation, yoga alignment, anatomy, and I bring in guest teachers once a month to teach a special topic workshop, as well as there's one-on-one session that you can sign up with me to talk about your specific questions or anything specific going on in your teaching life. So if you want to continue growing in this group and supportive community setting that is hybrid learning style, in person and or Zoom, so you can be joining from any time zones, I would love for you to fill out the application form to see if you are the right fit for the mentorship program. I'll put the link to the mentorship application, mentorship page on my website. So go ahead and check it out, and you can reach out to me with any questions about the mentorship. My Instagram is at Reika Yoga, and my website is www.reikayoga.com, and those are the great way to reach out to me. If you're still here listening, I always like to end with please like, subscribe, star, or download, whatever you can do on whatever platform you're listening to this podcast from. Just something as simple as putting a 5-star or subscribing it on Spotify can be super beneficial for my podcast. But the most important thing is if you could share this podcast, this episode, with anybody you think who will benefit or who might enjoy this episode or this podcast as a whole, that would be so appreciated. And I really appreciate every single one of you listening to this podcast, and I will speak to you next week. Bye.